Shooting Tyler the Creator was insane. It was an indie festival, and all of a sudden, Tyler the Creator comes on. Can't see anything, wires everywhere, photographers scrambling, security scrambling, everyone screaming. Then the music comes on, and the bass just blows you right back. And I was freaking out. My adrenaline was going. I swear I was like shaking the camera. None of these photos are going to turn out. And then it was like the best set I've ever shot in my life.
In this episode of Get the Picture podcast, I'm really excited to talk about one of my favorite types of photography, music photography. It's also one of the most difficult types of photography because usually there's really low light that's constantly changing, you have fast-moving subjects, and depending on the style of music and the type of dancing that's going on, there can be a real risk of getting your camera gear damaged. These things can make taking concert pictures quite challenging. Today's guest doesn't only take live music photos, though. She also takes band promo photos, tours with bands documenting their tours, and much more. And aside from all that, she also plays in 2 bands herself, so that gives her a unique perspective to also speak from that point of view about working with photographers. I think she's developed a really unique photographic style and is already making quite a mark. So I'm excited to welcome one of my favorite music photographers to talk about her music photography and hopefully share some helpful thoughts on how you can do it too. So welcome to Get the Picture podcast, Katy Kelly.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I am very happy to be here. I love talking about anything that has to do with photography. So when you asked me, it was a no-brainer. I had to.
Amazing. So why don't we just start out for our listeners and viewers who might not be familiar with your work. I quickly mentioned some of the types of things you do with music photography, but can you go through it with us? What kinds of music photography do you do?
Yeah, so I do a little bit of everything with it. I like to have a versatile portfolio and do a bunch of different genres of music, but not only that, I don't know. I like to go and be creative, a little outside of the box, like with the promotional pictures and with the album art that people have, especially like with Anita Velveeta. Um, but yeah, that's kind of what I like to do with it. I just like to be overall just very versatile. I don't want to limit myself or put myself in this box where I think I can't show my creative side anymore. You know what I mean? So that's just kind of what I do with it.
Right on. And what drew you to photography in the first place? And specifically, what got you started focusing on music with your photography?
Yeah, totally. So, I've actually always had a very big interest in photography. There's this photographer, Ansel Adams, great photographer, does a lot of nature photography, but the composition of his work just is really, I don't know, it's really like inspiring, I guess if you were to say. But um it was just down to the fact of, do I want to drop the money on this? That's always it was kind of like, okay, I'm dropping hundreds of dollars on something that I'm not sure I'm going to stick with. And one day I was like, you know what? I'm just going to make the leap. I'm going to do it. So I got this very old 2008 camera. Mind you, this was only 2 years ago. So I got a 2008 DSLR Nikon, and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And I remember I was like, okay, well, I love music. I know what kind of shots I like to get of myself. Why not try concert photography? Plus, I had already been a little bit into it, of course, because I'm in bands. I get photos of myself. I find a very big interest in the artistic value of photos when it comes to concert photography. Giving someone that memory that they can relive of a show they were super excited about is something that I like to give back, you know?
Yeah, I love the way you put that. Like a lot of people, almost everyone loves music, right? And so a lot of people have the dream of, oh, maybe I can photograph bands, I can do pictures with this band I love, but it can be really intimidating. And
Mhm.
so, like, what was your first concert shoot like? Like, did you start out photographing friends' bands or someone you knew, or like, how did you get up the nerve to do it at first?
Yep. So funny you say that. My first show that I ever photographed was my boyfriend's show. But I was playing with him. So I was also playing that show. But my boyfriend was playing it with his band. And then my other friends that we're friends with, their band was also playing. So I was like, "Can I photograph you, please?" And yeah, the pictures turned out, oh my. They didn't they were some photos. But they with my very 12 megapixel DSLR camera that the shutter speed was just atrocious. It was okay. I'm so glad because I got such good experience. And the next time I photographed was my boyfriend's band at the Fine Line. And so I got experience shooting at kind of a bigger venue really early on. And it really taught me a lot about lighting. Um, but yeah, so that's just kind of where like I fell into it and got into it was, yeah, photographing a lot of people that I knew. And then it was like, oh, other people are seeing what they're posting, and that's kinda how I got people that I didn't know to come to me, was networking through other bands posting my photos. But yes, I did start with friends and family. I did already know a lot of people, I already had a lot of ins, I already had a pretty big network.
And well, I think there's an important lesson, at least that I take from that, which is that a lot of times people, when they start getting into photography, think they have to go to like the most like exotic place to take pictures of good pictures, or like they have to go to the Eiffel Tower to take pictures of the Eiffel Tower. They have to
Mhm.
start with like the most popular band in the country. You have to take photos of, um, whoever. I'm blanking on names of famous musicians, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
But, like, really, the most powerful photos in most cases are of your life and what's around you and the
right.
community that you're part of. That's what you actually have to offer as a photographer. So, yeah, for people interested in interested into music photography, go to shows, get to know people, and
Exactly.
if you're part of
Yes.
that scene, you'll actually take better photos, I think.
People ask me all the time, "How do you integrate yourself into the scene? How do you network? Go to shows." Like, I used to just I mean, now I get hired for so many that it's, like, hard to go to shows just willingly when I live an hour away. But, um, yeah, no, it's all about just going to shows. Go to shows, say hi to people, put yourself out there as scary as it is, like, people will I mean, most of the time from what I see from the Minneapolis scene, everyone is super inclusive. And if they're not, they'll probably get called out one way or another. Oh, yeah, I agree with you. It's all about going to shows.
So, of all the different types of photography, and I know you do other types of photography too, not just music, but
Mhm,
what is it about capturing live performances and musicians that keeps you coming back, despite some of what you were talking about? It's late hours, it's dark, sometimes nasty clubs that are have
mhm.
disgusting bathrooms or whatever. The shooting conditions are really difficult. Like, what keeps you coming back?
It's so funny. What keeps me coming back is not only is it satisfying to me to be like, I got that picture, I got the energy like that. Like, I thrive off of getting and capturing the energy, whether that be in an indie band that, is not moving around a lot, or it's someone like, oh gosh, who Anita Velveeta, who is just moving around constantly, and I'm trying so hard not to get in her way, but so trying to get close to her.
So, one big question for a lot of people starting out with photography and wanting to do concerts is that, like, most established clubs, even quote unquote cool ones, like you mentioned, Fine Line or like First Avenue here
Mhm.
in Minneapolis, and certainly like big stadium type shows and festivals, they restrict cameras. Like, you can't just walk in with a DSLR or mirrorless camera
Yeah.
with detachable lenses. They won't let you in. So, how do you find out if a show you want to shoot at even allows you to bring in a camera, first of all? If they don't allow just anyone to do it, how do you get permission to bring your camera and shoot at shows when you're just getting started?
Totally. So, what I do is I normally go look at a website. like, for instance, for First Avenue, they do have a section, like, frequently asked questions where you can look and see, okay, um, they don't allow, for instance, they say they allow you have to get a press pass, but no flash is allowed at any First Avenue venue. So it's like, okay, I don't need to bring my flash to that. So I do try to go look at the website, and if not, I do just email them because a lot of sites do have like just a general email for general inquiries. And so that's what I normally do. But what I have found out is most places will let you bring cameras in, but only if you have a press pass. Now, I remember trying to get my first press pass, and I was like, I have no idea how to do this. Like, I have no idea how to do this. And I got very lucky, and the band Vile, they put me on their guest list at the
Hmm.
Varsity Theater, and that's how I got that press pass. So they just put me on a list. And what I've realized too throughout doing this is if a band does not put you on the list to get in for a press pass, you basically have to be with a publication. And the publication has to request it for you. Um, and you have to go through all of that. And even so, like I'm part of Tumbling Rock. And even so, it's hard for us to get press passes. Now I know like we're a little DIY kind of publication, but still, I mean, they get press passes sometimes to do interviews, but I might not for a photo pass. It
Hmm.
really just depends. So the easiest way to go and get a press pass is through the band. The harder way to do it is to go through a publication. Now, I feel very lucky because I recently became an in-house photographer for First Avenue. And so I get press passes that way, which is why you've seen me shoot some bigger shows like the Die Spits and Viagra Boys show. And that was a bigger show. Or like Cameron Whitcomb, I shot him at First Avenue and I got them through First Avenue, but the other shows that I like, I have gotten a press pass to the Fillmore, but I had to go through the band. They had to put me on the list. So I could go on, but you get the gist.
So there's the tips. Reach out to the band first, especially if you know people in the band. That's the easiest. But you can also just message a band on Instagram or on wherever, and a lot of times they will respond. I mean,
Yeah, you
um,
can cold call them.
yeah,
Totally. I do that.
I've done that as well, and sometimes it has worked at
Yeah.
times. And with First Avenue, like I've never been an in-house photographer with them, but I have done photos at shows at some of the First Avenue affiliated clubs where I've
Yeah.
had to get on their list beforehand, and they basically just the way it worked for me was they'd let you in free to the show, and then you give them the pictures so that they have documentation of the show. But then it sounds like they have in-house photographers too. Once they get to know you and like your work, they can.
Yep. Yep, and that's it's super slick, super cool. I'm very grateful to be doing that as well. Um, and so yeah, that's just how I get most of my press passes now. Um, and even if there will be like I feel very grateful as well because whenever I get a First Avenue press pass, I get a +1.
Yeah.
And so that's just a little perk that I love, and I drag my boyfriend to the shows with
Hmm.
me, because it's an hour drive, so he keeps me company, but that's a good perk to the press pass, so even if I was already gonna go shoot a show, if it's on the First Avenue list, I always try to get that in, 'cause then I'm just like, "Alright, you're coming with me."
Yeah, I've had that too, where you get a +1 and then you just, "Oh, which of my friends would like to see this band?" Like, and it's nice
Right,
to just be
yeah.
able to get someone a free entry to a cool show.
I know, and it's super nice too, like I don't know, I could just bring a friend and they'll enjoy the show, get in for free, I'll get photos, it's a win-win.
Yeah. So, let's get into some maybe details or technical stuff for when you're shooting, at shows. What is in your gear bag for a typical show? Like, and specifically, what lens or lenses and focal lengths do you like to use?
Yep, so I rock with a mirrorless Nikon Z7. That is my baby, 45 megapixels, incredibly beautiful. I love it. Although I have a bad feeling she might be going to the graveyard sometime soon. I know, right? But still, she's working. So I always try and shoot with my Z7. Now, if it's really, really low lit situations where like I know it's gonna be like, sometimes 7th Street is really dimly lit. So I sometimes bust out my Nikon Z6 II that is better in low light. So I do shoot with that sometimes. But otherwise, I'm using an 11 millimeter fisheye. All of the photos that you see with all the pretty colors and all of the crisp, like just very gritty photos that you see from me are all with my fisheye. Um, that is my baby. And then so I'm trying to transition into saying this. I got a is it
Got
Godix? I never know.
Godex, I think is the right way to pronounce it.
That's
Yeah.
what I thought. Okay. I got a Godix V100 that's coming in the mail. So I'm super excited about that. Got a Black Friday deal.
Nice.
So I'm very excited about that. So I'm gonna be rocking with that for my speed light. If it's no flash, I rock my 24 to 70 2.8. And if it's a bigger venue as well, I bring my 70 to 200 2.8.
I was gonna say, because you started talking about using a fisheye. With a fisheye lens, you have to get like literally right in front of the band as close as possible, which you can do in
Exactly.
some of the smaller DIY clubs and bars and stuff. But yeah, if you're gonna be at even First Avenue or even bigger locations,
Exactly.
that's when you would move to the other lenses. Okay.
Exactly. And like unfortunately, I have to have my aperture super high up on my fisheye to get everything. Otherwise the blur effect is really bad. Um or bokeh, I don't know. You get what I mean. And so I have to have the aperture up pretty high to get everything in focus, which unfortunately gets my photos really dark if I
Hmm.
can't use flash. So I really don't use my fisheye if I'm not using flash, unfortunately. Um so that's just kind of a bummer because I would like to use those at bigger shows. But again, like, I use the harness and I already got my two camera bodies. I don't have a third one. I'm not going to switch very. So I call it an L. I don't use my fisheye for big shows, but
Yeah.
maybe someday.
So let's just get into that a little more for people who are listening that are just learning photography to talk about what you were just saying a little more. So you said I forget the exact words you used, but bump up the aperture. Um, Explain what that means. So the aperture, does that mean yeah, just explain what that means
Yeah.
and why you have to do that to keep everything in focus.
Yep. So the aperture is it's the amount of light that gets let in through the lens.
Hmm.
So think about if it's a 2.8, which is the lower the aperture, the more light that gets let in. So it's like this, and then the higher up you go, it goes like this and lets in less light. So when I have to, but the thing is when you put your aperture at a lower number, so the 2.8, that will give you a better blur effect in the background. The higher up you go, the less blur you'll get in the background. Um, so, but the higher you go, the less light it lets in, the darker you have to have your photos. Um, and then I could go into ISO, but you have to turn that up because of the light sensitivity, to balance out the fact that your aperture has to be a little bit
Hmm.
higher up, not let in as much light. Got to increase that. Then it has the grain effect. You know how it goes.
Yeah,
I could
thank
go
you.
on and on. I'm probably confusing people as I say this, but
No, that was
in my
really
brain,
good.
it makes sense.
That was really good, and I really appreciate you going into the details on that. And
Yeah.
so when you're taking photos, let's talk about your photographic style a little bit. I think it's unique, and it really does stop the scroll on social media. Like people are just scrolling, and it's so easy to just scroll through stuff, even like it, but not
Right.
look at all the photos. But I actually stop and look at your photos because they have a different look than most people's. Um, so when you're especially in smaller clubs, when you're using your fisheye lens, you use the shutter drag method and
Hmm.
shoot with a flash like you talked about to sort of get the movement of the people and the movement of the light and show the motion and excitement from a live performance. So can you explain the shutter drag method for those that might not know what that is, and what settings are sort of your starting point to get that effect?
Absolutely. So, the shutter drag, it's kind of not self-explanatory, but it's in the name. You want your shutter to drag, which means if you put your shutter speed at a lower shutter speed, so what I use to get my photos crisp and with no shutter drag or no light trails is I go to around about 1 over 200, 250, somewhere in that range. Um, so I like to go within that range because then the higher up my shutter speed goes, then the darker my photos get. So I try to keep it around that range. But if you want the light trails, you will go down to like a third. So 1 over 3.
A third of a
So
second, yeah.
a third of a second, yes, a third of a second. When you do that, your shutter or, the time it takes to release the button, um, the shutter, to the time it takes to release the shutter, the button you take the picture with, um, the more that your light trails will follow if you move your camera because it's taking longer to take the picture. Um, and so the longer it takes to take the picture, the more light trails you'll get because the light will move with the camera. Now, I also, with that, have to move my camera. So I don't just take a picture like this and have it stationary. With the shutter drag, I will move my camera and people will be like, "What are you doing?" And think
Yeah,
I
I've
am
seen you do that.
weird. Yeah, people would literally come up to me and be like, "You have to tell me what you're doing." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, I know I look really weird." So I move my camera around a lot, put the shutter speed at a third of a second, and that'll create the light trails. Now, I have to use flash. I have to use flash to get that because people will hire me for these venues that don't allow flash, and I'm like, "It will not look like my style of photos. I'm sorry." So you have to use flash because that will keep your subject in focus and still while the light trails in the background are being created by the slower shutter speed.
Right, like, if you do it without a flash, then you just get a blur, a
You're
long
just gonna
blur, and then the flash goes off. You set it, I assume, to rear sync so that the flash goes off at the end of that 1/3 of a second and
Yep,
freezes the motion there, and that's the frozen motion where people are you can see the people, but, yeah,
yep,
you see a third of a second of light trails and stuff leading up to that.
yes, exactly.
So let's talk about so you use shutter drag method. A lot of photographers do that, especially in sort of DIY or
Yeah,
punk or hardcore kind of venues. You're not the only one. I do it. Everyone does it, right?
yep,
But your colors look really unique, and it's something about the shutter drag method and the colors and the brightness, and also sometimes you actually paint. It seems like intentionally with the light trails to like create a circle around the subject,
mhm.
things like that. Can you talk about all of that a little bit?
Yes, yes. So, I mean, something that I have wanted to do from the beginning is like, I want someone to look at a photo and be like, that's a Katy Kelly photo. So I've always wanted to do that, like from the start. And I was like, I feel like I didn't really find my style until I figured out how to do a shutter drag. I remember when I did for the first time, and I was on this couch standing up in this basement at this show. It was packed. It was crazy. It was in a suburb. And I remember for the first time, I was like, okay, I read this on the internet. Let's try it. And I got shutter drag for the first time. And I like looked at my boyfriend. I was so excited. I was like, this is it. This is gonna be my style. This is what I want to do. So um then I had to start working with my editing style. I was like, how do I want to edit these? How do I like, want to make these look unique? And a lot of what I do is, and I'm gonna be throwing out some tips and tricks
Love it.
that I use, but I really emphasize teals and oranges. Um, those are just really interesting colors to me. Like if you look at a lot of my photos that I take at Pillar Forum, that stage is incredible because it's yellow. And so I can kind of manipulate it with the oranges a little bit, make it a little orange, make blacks look teal. And so that's just kind of what I like to do. I like to, and the thing is you don't even notice it. Your eye doesn't say like, oh, that's a teal color until I were to tell you, and you'll be like, oh yeah, I can see the teal highlights. Like that's crazy. And so it's just little things like that. I try to up the saturation a little bit. I do try to up the highlights. Um, a little over exaggerating. And that's just kind of how I get those crisp, like especially with the colorful ones, because I will say I feel like I have like a very like Roy G. Biv kind of like approach to some editing photos if the colors are more vibrant, and then like especially with the photos that I don't do the light trails in, I will focus on the oranges and teals. And with my black and white photos, I just up the clarity. I just up it as much as I can, and then I'll edit everything from there. I'll tweak the whites and the highlights and the contrast. But those are just a couple of my tricks and tips for my editing style.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that too. I think it's important not to gatekeep for new photographers so others can learn
Yeah,
too, and not so that they can copy what you're doing or what others are doing, but to take inspiration from it and develop their own styles.
exactly. Yeah, I think it's so just very it shouldn't be competitive. It's not competitive. Art is not competitive. It's should be lifting each other up. So I totally agree. I could go on about that.
Awesome. So, do you at this point, you said you've been doing this for a couple years. Do you mostly shoot for free at this point, or do you mostly get paid for your music photography? And was it awkward starting to ask for money? And
Yeah.
yeah, how can you now? How do you navigate those kinds of conversations?
I know, that was, like, a very intricate way I had to navigate into that, because, honestly, right now, I still do, like I would say for I get all of the First Avenue stuff is unpaid. It is portfolio building, that was very, like, clear to me from the start, so it's almost like I don't really see as doing those for free because I wasn't hired to do them. There'll be some shows like my boyfriend shows. I shoot him for free because he also it's really nice because his band um is like high energy, and so I get really good practice with that. So I will say if I photograph any other bands that night and like I didn't make him pay, why would I make the other bands pay? You know what I mean? So, if I'm already shooting someone for free there and I'm shooting another band, I'm not gonna make them pay. Now, if I get hired to do a show, which I would say three-fourths of my shoots right now, I do get paid for, that I get hired for. There will be some that I'll do on the house. If someone can't afford it, I'm not gonna make them pay. If someone's just like, "Hey, can I wait till my next paycheck?" I'll be like, "Don't worry about it. That's not I'm not trying to have you wait till your next paycheck
Hmm, right.
to pay me to hire me." So, I'd say about three-fourths of the shoots that I do are paid hired shoots, which is very nice, but navigating it for the first time was so weird. Like I for like almost up to a year, I would not accept money. I would not accept it. Or if I did, it'd be like, okay, fine $20, but like just don't overcharge or don't pay me more, and I'm trying not to overcharge. So it took me about a year and a half, honestly, of feeling comfortable taking money from people. I had been getting hired to do shoots like about 8 months in, I'd say, where I was getting like actually paid, but I still felt weird about like taking the money because I also had this a little bit of imposter syndrome of like I didn't like calling myself a photographer.
Hmm.
Like I was like, no, I just shoot photos. Like I just I just shoot pictures and I have a camera, but I'm not a photographer. And so it took me a long time to realize like, no, I am a photographer. I create, art of my own. I should value my work and my time. And so I'm still trying to navigate that. I still do a lot of stuff on the house because I'm not, again, I feel very privileged. I work a day job. I get PTO. I, the least I can do is give back to people in any way that I can, whether or not that be getting paid or not.
And yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I mean, when I go to shows, I don't expect to get paid, and I
Right.
do that because I love doing it, and I think that's important as a photographer. And you're definitely a photographer in my eyes. Like, but that imposter syndrome is not just you either. I think it's all everyone, you know. But
Right. Yeah.
I think it's important to have projects and do photography that you love because you love doing it and not because you're going to get paid. Otherwise, it'll just start
Right.
feeling like a job and it'll kind of suck after
Oh
a while.
my gosh. I say that all the time. Like sometimes when I get paid for stuff, it does start to feel like a job. Like and at that point I'm like, why am I doing this? This is not what I want to do. And at the same time it's like, you know, not everything I get hired to do, I might like. And if I'm gonna be too picky about it, then, like, I don't feel like I'm really doing my job as a photographer that wants to give back to people.
Mhm.
I want anyone that feels comfortable working with me and working with me with my style to let me help them bring their vision to life. And that's what I'm here about. I'm not here being like, well, I only want to do what I want to do. And honestly, it helps me as a photographer think like, not like think outside of the box, but think visually and on my creative side, like, how can I make this my style while bringing their vision to life? And I just think that's the most important thing to me, honestly, is just giving back and helping someone have their vision be like visualized and the final product of like going from thinking to paper to photo to physical. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because they'll have a vision of what they want, but they've come to you because they like your style too, but then it's
Right.
navigating that to make something together. Yeah, and I think that it's important to, like we were just talking about, work that you like, do photography that you like doing for free just because you want to do it. And it's also a really expensive hobby. It costs a lot for cameras and gear and takes a lot of time doing the photos and then editing the photos. And like you said before, valuing our time and our work and our craft and all the knowledge we've gained is super important too. So I do think it's great and important for especially developing photographers to learn to ask for money for what you're doing, and
Yeah.
sometimes do things for free, but always be clear beforehand what it is, whether you're
Mhm.
just doing it for fun or whether this is something that you are asking for money for. And
Right, exactly.
when I first started asking for money, I was very tentative about it at first, like, well, if because publications would ask me to use my photos, and I would say, well, if you have a budget for photography, I would like to get paid because I'm trying to. This is part of my making a living, and
Yeah.
if it's a big newspaper like the Washington Post or something, geez, you could think they could pay a photographer at least a little bit,
Right?
and
Right.
but they all just ask to use them for free. So, but once I started asking, a lot of them will at least pay you a little bit if you ask.
No, and
It's
that's
important.
honestly good to know, like, I didn't even know that, although I don't really have a ton of publications reaching out to me, but, I have worked with publications before that are very upfront with me and just like, "Hey, this is gonna be unpaid," and I was like, I could use the experience, so totally fine with me.
Yeah, and I've done that too. It's always depends on the case and the
Right.
situation. But yeah, like I mentioned the Washington Post because I had some photos that I took at punk shows back in the 80s and early 90s. I have some of Bikini Kill that have sort of they've lingered online for a long time because they were from sort of their
Yeah.
early era and like black and white. You get the energy, whatever. So I'll have. And the Washington Post did reach out to use one of those photos for a story they were doing about Riot Girl or about something,
That's
and
crazy. That's
um,
awesome.
at that point, I was just, like, excited that they wanted to use my photo, so I just let them use it, but n
Right.
now I ask for money from big publications for
Yeah,
sure.
no, that's valid, but I'm sure at the time you were just, like, excited.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would be too. I'd be like, "Take it."
So let's talk a little bit about, aside from just taking pictures of bands while they're performing at concerts, the photos that you do that aren't live concert photography, like when you're doing photos of like promo photos of the band all together in the what's it called, backstage or wherever.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, talk a little bit about that. And also, you've made reference to Anita Velveeta. Where can you talk about that shoot where you did some photos that are going to be used like on an album cover?
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh. So it was actually the photo she just did for her new album, Liquid Gold. I we rented a studio and I she came to me with this vision of a cheese dress and she brought 40 pounds, 40 or 50 pounds of cheese to the studio. Mind you, the studio
Amazing.
we rented from, the owner was there. And he was like, "I can step outside if you want." And I was like, "Yeah, that might be best." And so then we like get all the cheese out, put all the cheese on her, and it's like the smell in there was insane. And
Wow.
yeah, that was actually my first studio shoot I had ever done. And so my friend Forrest, I took the photos, Forrest edited the album cover itself. But yeah, no, that was such a fun shoot. But in general, though, like promotional pictures for bands, I think they are honestly really important. With my band, we we should be a little better about taking promotional photos. But like for smaller bands, having those like not to toot my own horn, but like having those nice promotional photos that look professional and acting like, hey, we're a band. We care. We want to show you, like, this is what we're about. And not always, they're different from live photos because it's like they can put their own little attitude or spin that they have time to think about. Whereas on stage, like when I'm on stage, everything that's in front of me is just, I don't see it. And so it's like I'm in my own little bubble. And
Right.
I assume a lot of other people are like that. Like I always tell people like I'm sorry that I flashed in the face and they're just like, "Oh, I didn't notice. It's okay." And I'm just like, okay.
How would you suggest someone who's interested in doing promo photos with the band approach a band? Because it's one thing,
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
at small DIY shows, you can just show up with your camera and take pictures. You don't really even have to ask the band first. But if you want to
Right.
do a photo shoot with them, like at a location, yeah, how would you suggest someone approach a band for that?
Course, yeah. So I actually recently just did that. Like normally I offer if people want promo photos, I offer them that at the show. That I'll just take them. We can go outside quick or something. But I actually put myself out there. I kind of know this band a little bit, but I put myself out there and I messaged Remo Drive and I was like, "Can I please take promotional photos for you?" Like they were playing at the Fine Line and so it was like a bigger show and I thought like, they were going to be too busy or whatever and they like pulled me aside and they're like, "Let's go take them." And it's really just about asking the bands. Like you just got to have that confidence to be like, "Hey, do you guys want like a group shot really quick?" And I guarantee you, like, no one's really going to say no. I have not really had a lot of people say no. Maybe some of them will be like a little begrudgingly, like, "Oh, I guess so." And some of the bandmates will be like, "Yay, yes." And so you get those sometimes where it's like, okay, not everyone is stoked to do this, but like
Different personalities in the band, of
different
course.
personalities, exactly, and so it's just like, I like to ask the bands a lot, like, at the show, but if it's kind of like a bigger show or something, I normally message the band and ask them if they would like promotional photos, or I just ask them, "Can I take promotional photos of you?" So, yeah, it's all about your comfortability level, I'd say, but
But the
messaging the band, yes.
bottom line is you just have to ask. You have to put
You
yourself
just
out
have
there.
to ask. You gotta put yourself out there. That is the one thing about photography I've learned. You just have to put yourself out there, no matter what, in, like, every situation. So, definitely putting yourself out there for, like, "Can I take photos of you?" And there's that, like, daunting feeling of, like, I could get rejected right now. But you just gotta move past that, and if like, I've had people be like, "No, I don't want photos," and I'm just like, Okay, no worries. Less work for me. That's fine, you
Yeah,
know?
just move on.
So I just take it as it comes. If people don't want photos, I'm not offended. Nothing like that.
So you've also toured with bands as a tour photographer. Tell us about that. That sounds awesome. And how did that come about?
Yes.
And like, what do you do on tour? Do you just document the shows or do you document other stuff
Yes.
too? And do they make you do work like selling merch and lugging drum kits and stuff?
So, I mean, when it comes to merch and like lugging stuff around, like I do that with my band. Well, I should be a little better about it, but I do try and help.
You
I
carry
do
the
try and help.
microphone to the stage.
I know. I'm just like, oh, okay, bye guys. Yeah. And I just go out the door. I have no instruments, no nothing. But I do try and help, like at least bring stuff in. And so with Virginia's Basement, I had actually known them all for a while. And they've known me. I'd photographed their band multiple times. And so they were going on tour and they were like, Katie, would you like to come on tour as our photographer? And I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, yeah, I do. Like, that was like, and it was only 4 days. And I'm like, that's so easy. Beautiful. That's the perfect time for tour, like, or length for tour because, I've never been on tour as a photographer. I don't really know. Um, and so that's kind of how I had like a little bit of an in with them. But on tour, it's so much fun. Like, from going from the show to like the following day, you'll take photos at the show. And then like sometimes I'll even bring my laptop with me to the show so I can just start editing photos while I'm there because otherwise I will have to like we'll go back to wherever we're staying and everyone's like hanging out, not like partying, but hanging out, talking and like having a grand old time and then there's me and I got to work and edit photos. And it's not like I don't love it. Like I love it, but while everyone's hanging out, you're on business still. And so then the next day, even if I still have to edit, I'll probably get up early the next morning, edit a bit. And then wherever we go, like on tour, like if we stop at like a gas station or a random restaurant, like I'll have my camera on me to take like candid photos, because those are so important on tour.
Yes.
Like you need those candid photos. And so I try to get as many candids as I can too, but then I'll be editing in the van and whatnot. So it's like business 24/7 and I love it. I've done it twice and both times were only like 3 or 4 days. But honestly, like it was the perfect length for me for, just starting.
That's amazing. Yeah, I haven't been a tour photographer. I have gone along with some friends' bands on tours many years ago and
Mhm.
helped with like merch and whatever. And it's a lot of fun. And so if folks do have a chance to be a tour photographer, I would say go for it.
Go for it. Take
And
that chance.
and I agree with you that about not just documenting the concerts, but also doing candid stuff because 10, 20, 30 years down the road, those are going to be the ones that are going to be the most valuable. And
Right, exactly. Like you can have hundreds of concert photos, but it's like the photos with your friends that you're making memories with is so important.
all right, so we're kind of getting near the end, and I want to end up with a sort of rapid fire get the picture question series.
Yes,
Does that sound good? You ready?
perfect.
All right. What's your biggest pet peeve at a live show?
When people talk over the bands, for real, really irritates me. Or when someone tries to come like that's just from like I guess a spectator point of view, from a photographer point of view. When someone comes up to me and like tries to one up me for no reason, like
Like
and
another
tries to
photographer?
yeah, yeah, I guess yes, like another photographer would try to come up and like one up me when I was like when I did like I didn't ask or anything. Like it's just very unsolicited. And you would think that wouldn't happen that often, but I swear it happens like more often than I would like it to. Like I love talking shop, but when someone's like, "Oh, well, I have a Sony." And I'm just like, "Okay, whatever."
So I'm my assumption as you're saying that is this is a very gendered thing, that it's like a dude thing to come up and tell you about what your career is.
Yeah, I would say so. It's normally dudes, but I've had some other people come up to me and I'm just like, I didn't know. So, it's not just men. not just men. So I try to, you know, be a little diligent, be on my toes a little bit.
Yeah. What's your most memorable artist or band that you photographed?
Tyler, the Creator, how could it not be?
And talk about that a little bit.
Oh my gosh, yeah, so shooting Tyler, the Creator was insane. It was an indie festival, and all of a sudden, Tyler, the Creator comes on. It had just got dark, can't see anything, wires everywhere, photographers scrambling, security scrambling, everyone screaming. Then the music comes on, and the bass just blows you right back, and I was freaking out, like, I was so nervous, my adrenaline was going, I swear I was, like, shaking the camera. Like, it was just, oh my gosh, and I was like, "None of these photos are gonna turn out," and then it was, like, the best set I've ever shot in my life, and it was just, not like a once in a lifetime thing, but definitely, like, for my first big, big, big artist, like, I would not have wanted it to be anyone else besides Tyler.
Amazing. What's your favorite venue in the Twin Cities to shoot?
Pillar Forum. I
Yeah.
love Pillar Forum. Yes, they are amazing. The lighting is amazing. The people that own it are amazing. The people who do sound are amazing. And genuinely, the vibe is always good there. Like, it's never really like, I don't know, like, oh, there's like, you know, I don't know. There are other places I won't name names in the cities, but like, I feel like a lot of like places where I think a lot of people maybe have ill intentions, and I don't really feel that way at Pillar Forum. Everyone seems to be like inclusive, aware, and wants to keep everyone safe. Definitely like a community vibe. So I that's why I really love shooting at Pillar Forum, honestly. But again, the colors. Oh, the lighting, incredible. Gets me insane colors. A close second, honestly, would be for like a DIY spot. The colors at Clash Drums are crazy. I just shot Wakefield there and I got insane colors with those. They just upgraded their lighting. So yeah, those two venues, but I think Pillar Forum would have to take the cake.
And I would agree on Pillar Forum. Just and actually, that was one of the first times that we met or talked was when they did.
Yes.
Uh, I love this, and I wish other clubs would do this. It's a great idea. They had a photo exhibition of photos that were taken at shows at their club, and so they got a bunch of photographers. Both of us were in it, and there were several others who had our photos up on the wall for I don't know a couple months, and
Mhm.
people could look at them and buy them if they wanted. And then they had like a opening exhibition, and you got to see all this work created in that space. I love that.
Yeah,
Other clubs should do that.
I agree. It was such a cool experience being included in that with so many other talented photographers in the cities. And one of the photographers had a photo of me at Pillar Forum.
That's
That
right.
was super cool. So yeah, I love Pillar Forum. Have a lot of love for them.
What is your editing software of choice?
Lightroom, I don't use Classic. I know, but I know, but yeah, I just use Lightroom. I wish I was a little more well versed in Photoshop. I really, really do. That is something on my to-do list. But Lightroom is where it's at.
That's what I use too, and I've thought about trying other ones, but once you have your whole catalog on there and everything, it's hard to switch.
It's so hard to switch. I'm kind of locked in now.
And who is one photographer, either a music photographer or otherwise, that you would want to shout out that inspires you?
Okay. Well, I will say I did mention earlier, Ansel Adams. Again, just the compositional work is just insane, and it was crazy, like, I remember I found these photos in Goodwill, and they were $6 each of his photos, and I went and looked him up online, and I was like, "This guy's insane." Also, he's pretty famous, and I'm sure it's just a print or on a poster of his work, whatever, but it was just like the work was just so simple, but it told a story, and I really like that. Um, but if I don't know, one person that I really like just, like, in the scene is, Yoshi. I don't know if you know Yoshi at all. Um Their handle is like Artie Manor, I think, on Instagram. But like we have very similar styles. And I really love the way that they use like Photoshop for collaging photos. And so like that's kind of an inspo for me that I want to get into, and someone that I just like I really admire in the cities, you know. Um just being of similar styles. I really like our collaborations. And yeah, so locally, Yoshi, otherwise Ansel Adams. I have like one of his quotes on my website. I can't get enough of him.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Katie, for sharing so much of your knowledge and your journey with us today. And I think
Of
you've given
course.
our listeners or viewers some great info to take the plunge into music photography. If folks want to follow your work, I know you're on Instagram, you're at Katy to the Kelly _photos. Is that right? And is there anywhere else that you'd have people see your work, or is that your main spot?
Is my main spot. I do have a website, katykellyphotos.pixieset.com. So I do have a website. You can look at all of my work, not just my concert photography work. But yeah, no, that's where you can find me. You can also make inquiries there. So yeah, check it out.
All right. Thanks so much again. And to all of our listeners and viewers, thank you for listening and viewing. And please support Get the Picture by liking, subscribing, doing all the things, and giving a 5-star rating on all the platforms. This is a new podcast, so we need to get some established reputation out there so that when people search for photography, they'll find our podcast. And hey, if you can spare a few bucks, become a patron on Patreon at patreon.com, Get the Picture Podcast.